Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Become a Guest to Apply. All right, so I have Evan Sohn on the line, and he is CEO of Recruiter.com. Evan, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much, Adam, for having me on your show.
All right, Evan. So I'm excited to have you on the show today and really just to get the insights from your vantage point over at Recruiter.com. So a lot going on in the job market, and really you're at the epicenter of that. A lot of data, huge company. I'm excited to get your input today.
Thanks. I'm excited to share it.
So just to get us kicked off, I'll start with our Mission Matters Minute. Evan, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. So that's what we do. Evan, what mission matters to you?
It's a phenomenal question, Adam. I really appreciate it. For me, and why I became CEO of Recruiter.com, really at the height of the pandemic in June of 2020, is I really felt that how can I make a difference in the post-pandemic world? How can we help the economy get back up and running? And if there were companies that were going to be the sort of pandemic shutdown companies, Peloton, Netflix, DoorDash, et cetera, Zoom, how can I help the economy get back up and running? And that was really my impetus for becoming the CEO of Recruiter.com. You know, who better than Recruiter.com to help the millions of people get back to work, the companies help rehire. And that's what really excites me.
That's awesome. Love bringing mission-based executives on the line to really talk about why they do what they do, what gets them up and fired up every morning. So thank you for sharing that. So let's move on a bit. So tell me a little bit more about really how you got started on this path of going into recruiting.
As I joke around, I'm probably the least qualified recruiter at Recruiter.com. I'm not a recruiter. I've been involved in a number of technology companies, really in either disruption or reinvention of different industries. So I started my first one in 1989 in mobile computing. I was 21 years old, started a company in 89. If you remember what 89 or the 90s looked like in mobile, it looks nothing like we have today. Really reinvented industries like pharmaceutical sales force automation, wireless email, a couple other industries. That company grew over a decade. We got acquired by Dun & Bradstreet. I then went to another venture-backed company, grew that over a few years, got acquired by Message Labs, grew that, which then got acquired by Symantec, went back into mobile to a company that got acquired by Verifone, stayed there for a bunch of years, and then went over to a Silicon Valley company, also in the payment space. Grew that company, got acquired by GoDaddy. And about 3 years ago, in the fall of 2018, was approached by one of the investors in what's now Recruiter.com to sort of get involved to see what we could do regarding this company called Recruiter.com. First came on as chairman of the board in March of 2019, and then as CEO in June of 2020 at the height of the pandemic.
That's awesome. And in many senses, it seems like you're the perfect person to do this based on what I'm hearing about your career. So the job market right now, I feel like it's going through a big change just in general. I mean, so the days of, and this is maybe happening at some companies still, but I know when I was growing up, the idea was, I'm from Michigan, and the idea was, you know, you work at a company, maybe it's manufacturing, maybe it's something else. Again, I'm from the Midwest. You work there 20, 30 years, you retire, and then you move on to your next thing, right? So I feel like the job market in general and our expectations and what we're expecting has changed. What are you seeing along those lines?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that I gave a talk the other day on the changing world of work, and we all grew up, and I'm older than you, but we grew up with our dads saying, or our parents saying, hey, you got to stay at this company for at least 2 years. You don't want to look like a job hopper. You got to stay long, et cetera. And, I will say today that we are entering the job hopper economy. And here's a great example. If I asked you 2 years ago, so now October 2019, you saw a resume of a 30-year-old who had been at the same company for a decade. If I asked you to describe that person, you'd probably say things like 2 years ago, loyal, committed, steadfast, rising up the ranks, et cetera. If 2 years later, October 2021, same person, 10 years at the same company, 30-year-old at the same company since they graduated, you'd probably say stale, risk averse, not interesting in new things. So the question really is, what happened over the last 2 years that would change this model? And I think what's happened is this notion of job hopper went from being a bad thing as it was when I was a kid to now being, that's what it is. I think a recent survey, and look, you saw a record number, 4.3 million people quit in August. You had a survey that came out that said 60% of all millennials would leave their first job within the first year. Wow. Now that's amazing. Now that says that 40% would stay, but like 60% would have no problem leaving. So the question's not about you and me, right? The question really is, if you're 26 years old or 25 years old and you've been at the same company for 5 years, you got to be saying to yourself, gee, is it time for me to go and find a new opportunity? Now, what's interesting is, look at Silicon Valley. That really, at some level, again, I'm generalizing, is already the culture in Silicon Valley. If you're a high-end developer, you're an incredibly skilled developer, you're not going to be at the same company for more than 3-4 years because it's too expensive. You are your greatest investment. You're going to move on to the next opportunity. So I think that's really catching up. And there's so many dynamics that we're going to talk about over the next 20 minutes or so that's really affecting these numbers.
And so when you think about that workforce and that job hopper economy, as you mentioned, like where does the kind of gig economy, how does that fit into it? Because I feel like there's so many moving pieces going on. Like what does that do to it?
I think it just makes it go even further. I think there's three things. There used to be three things that kept someone as a W-2 employee, right? There was healthcare, 401k, and a mortgage. Right? Those are like the three primary things that kept someone as a W-2. Well, 401ks are now portable, right? It used to be your pension and, quote unquote, grandpa or dad, stayed at a company to max out his pension. 401k is a portable IRA, right? So you could take that stays with Adam, and Adam, wherever Adam goes, that goes with him. The next was healthcare. And now you're seeing companies offering healthcare for 10-9 employees. And there are various other healthcare things. I think the last final thing really is mortgage, right? In order to get a mortgage, you need to have a W-2. But if you're not planning to own a home, you're planning to rent, then why have a full-time W-2 job? Why do that? If you're working remotely, you could set up an LLC. It's really easy. Do you know in September of 2020 was the most number of EINs, employee identification number, like the social security number for a company, the most number ever made in history was in September of 2020. So 35% of all adults have a side hustle. I think the number is like 50% for all millennials. So the reality is that this virtual environment that we're in today is really making everyone have more hours to work, right? So the question now is, do I have a side hustle because I have extra time? I'm not commuting. I'm not doing 2 hours a day of commuting. So what does that actually change the overall economy for? And you're seeing that happen. And I think people will take opportunities where they can earn some extra money along the side. Consumer spending is about to go through the roof because of not just stimuluses, but we've been bent up. Travel, international travel is going to go through the roof. A lot of things are going to be happening over the next 12 months. But regardless, I think that while we have this blip in terms of the rehiring of all those that were on the sidelines, I think we are forever going to be moving into this, or certainly for the next foreseeable future, into this job hopper economy where people are going to be moving around from experience to experience. you're no longer talking about what's your next career. It's really more about what's your next experience going to be. I really think that's going to be happening.
No, well said. And I couldn't agree more on this one because I'm just seeing it. Like I see this, and I see this also just from the people that we interview day to day, and just my connection to the startup world and otherwise. Like I see it, and I've noticed that job. Like it's not uncommon for somebody to be on a project like you're talking about, developers and other things like that. But even like consultants and other things, like I see more and more of this gig work for like professional services, or even just like interim positions that were once upon a time somebody that you would think would be there for a really long time in a particular position, a defined amount of time that might be on there for 1 or 2 years, 3 years max.
That's right.
At even a C-level position, depending on what they're looking at. And I'm like, it's all changed.
I'll tell you something. If today is work from anywhere, right? Today's we're in a work from anywhere economy, and what that really does is the whole notion of a geographically undesirable job is gone. Yeah. Right. If I want to hire Adam Torres, I'm going to hire Adam Torres. And if Adam goes, well, I'm not going to come to the office, don't worry. I need Adam. Yeah. Right. I must have Adam on my staff. Yeah. And I think what that does is it really creates everybody in this country is now more valuable than they were a year ago. I think the other thing that it does is it morphs into hire from anywhere. So as a company, I am no longer bound just to hiring the people that are in my local area, just to hiring people that are in my, that could travel to the office. If I want Adam, I don't care where Adam is. I'll go find Adam. I'll go hire Adam. And what that really means as a company is, why don't I just hire Adam for the duration of the project that I need Adam? And when I'm done, I can move on. Because remember, if I'm not optimizing for building a company culture, and when a company says we're going 100% remote, they're sort of identifying that our culture is going to be 100% remote. It's actually going to let me swing that size of the office up and down, up and down, up and down. Yeah. So I think once that starts to happen, that's really going to allow companies to quickly shift around. Hey, look, I need someone like Adam for the next 24 to 36 months. Then I don't need someone like Adam. So why would I do that? Why would I have that individual? And again, I'm making generalizations, but you can certainly see like how companies are going to start thinking about, their overall workforce.
I think this is a great transition. So far we've really talked about from maybe the job hopper or the employee's standpoint. Let's shift focus a little bit and look from the idea of the employer and like the competition for talent. Like I'll tell you, myth or not myth, I'm hearing this all the time from people. Like there's a shortage of talent. There's a shortage of people that want to work, that want to like fill particular roles. Like, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, so let's break this up between the momentary lack of labor in the hourly workers, right? And I don't know how many restaurants you're going to where they're short staffed. Hotels are cleaning rooms every 3 days because they can't hire enough people. Like I get all that. That's going to be gone soon, right? Whether soon as 6 months, 9 months, a year, we'll fill all those roles. The question now is you have companies that historically had a 2% churn that are now seeing 15%. We have a client that can't hire fast enough because they're churning more people than are leaving. So that's the scary part. The scary part is, and let's break this up, right? You're wearing a wonderful suit right now, but if you were interviewing at a company 5 years ago or 4 years ago or 2 years ago, you came dressed up, right? You wore a suit to work and you said to your boss, oh, I got to go to a funeral this afternoon. My aunt's cousin died. I have to go. And you took off the afternoon to go to a funeral. The next day you're in the office and you're getting phone calls from the recruiter, the headhunter, and you're like, oh, it's my mom. Let me step outside. She's really sad about the funeral. It was all cloak and dagger. In fact, 2 years ago, someone would say finding a job is a full-time job, right? You would hear that all the time. I left my job. I need to find a new job, and finding a job is a full-time job. Yes. So what is interviewing today? Interviewing today is exactly, Adam, what you and I are doing right now, right? It's a video conference call, right? 15 minutes, 30 minutes video conference call. Who doesn't have 15 minutes today to interview? And by the way, no one cares anymore about what you're wearing. Yep. I don't have to wear a suit. I can interview in whatever I want to interview because if you want me, you're going to take me as I am. So there's something sort of there's something sort of fresh about this, right?
Yeah.
I am now me. I'm not about putting on a suit and a cloak and dagger. And you want me to work for you? I can work for you because I am so super productive because I'm not commuting anymore. So all of a sudden now, the availability to interview is so much easier. So you're going to get more offers. Every candidate, as I said before, is more valuable. That means that every candidate is going to get more offers than ever before. So it's easier to interview. It's easier to get offers, and there's no stigma in leaving. Right. So if you have no stigma in leaving, there's no geography barrier. There's no geographical barriers anymore. Right. And everyone needs somebody. Oh my God. So I think for companies, they're going to have to do two things. I think they're going to have to dramatically increase the numerator, right? Their candidate pipeline at the top.
Yep.
Let's assume I had to interview 50 people to get to Adam today, or 2 years ago, I needed 50 people to get to Adam. I might need 150 people to find Adam, because I might find 3 Adams and 2 of them might say, oh, I got a better opportunity.
Yeah.
So, years ago, I was in one of the Message Labs as a security company. I was running marketing for the Americas for Message Labs. And they went out and I was the interim head of marketing because they had acquired my company. And they did a search, right? And they did a search for a head of marketing in the security space in the New York area. And I get called in by the founder of the company, who goes, good news and bad news. The bad news is that we hired 3 headhunters and they all came up with your name. Like, you were the guy that came up with. The good news is you're going to get you'll now become the head of marketing. So the challenge was that, they wanted someone in New York who knew security, who knew SaaS, and that was me. If there was no geography, if there were no geographical restrictions, it probably wouldn't have been me, right? It probably would have been someone else who had, much more experience in the security space, et cetera. So I think that now it really is going to change how we look at candidates. And that's at the top of the funnel. Then the question is, well, I need more people to screen those people, to work the process, to work the channel. So I almost need to triple the pipeline and then add more talent acquisition professionals. And I think companies are hearing that, which is why there is this mad demand rush to hire recruiters. Right. There are more open positions today in the US for recruiters and talent acquisition professionals than there are for software engineers.
Wow.
It is crazy. It is absolutely crazy, because companies realize, if I'm going to think about it, Adam, I was hiring people to expand, and now I got to worry about backfilling all the churn. So not only can I not hit my growth numbers, I got to hire people to make sure that I don't miss my own number, right? Because I'm losing 15% of the people, and Microsoft expects that number to be over 40%. There was some crazy article that came out that said like 80% of people are looking for a new job, are willing to leave.
Wow.
And whatever those numbers are, it's because it's too easy. It's just too easy to leave.
Yeah. And so understanding that people are going to have to hire more, they're going to have to think about this churn. They're going to have to think about like planning and what the way that they maybe were doing things. Some companies were doing things before. It's just they're not going to get the same results potentially going forward. Like, they're going to have to make some changes and to rethink the way they grow their businesses. So I think this is a good point to maybe first talk a little bit more about recruiter.com before we go forward. So I don't want to assume that everybody's used the platform. So maybe just start off by telling us a little bit more about the platform overall.
Sure. So recruiter.com, we help companies large and small hire talent faster and better by augmenting their talent acquisition teams with on-demand recruiters. So you can think of us as like, again, tongue in cheek, we're like Uber for recruiting and recruiting technology. So you're a company, you want a recruiter, a tech recruiter that's got 5+ years of experience, and you want them for the next 3 months. You come to our platform and you get one. So whether that's a startup company that just raised money looking to hire people, or large, sophisticated Fortune 100 companies, and we have both, who I need 15 recruiters immediately to help augment my team. We do this purely on an on-demand basis. And then we have our own AI software that helps us build candidate pipelines. So typically our client is either looking for more candidates or more recruiters, or both, and we provide both. We've been really actively doing that business for really about a year and a half now, growing, very, very quickly. We've got like over 200 recruiters now out on assignment.
Wow.
We have 300 plus clients today, ranging from just job board clients to, large Fortune 10 using, lots and lots of our recruiters, and then everything in between. Got about almost 50 clients subscribing to our software. So it's very exciting.
And for this platform, so just to make sure I understood you correctly, so this the platform is of course appropriate for your enterprise level, middle market, and potentially some of the small business. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm often asked, we're a destination site for recruiters. We are recruiter.com. We run the largest community of recruiters, over 850,000 recruiter and HR professionals on a global basis. So we're doing exactly what you would expect to find at recruiter.com. So recruiters, talent acquisition professionals come to us, and either they're seeking full-time opportunities, part-time opportunities, gigs, or tools, or other offerings, and that's what we provide. So ironically, our demand, whenever you run a marketplace, there's a supply side and a demand side. The demand are actually either CEOs or global heads of talent, and the supply side are usually recruiters. They're usually independent, small and independent recruiters.
So so there's two essential clients. Obviously, there's the business owners that go there to find recruiters, and then there's also the recruiters themselves. So maybe tackling this from two different angles. Sure. What would you say is like one of the competitive advantages of recruiter.com? And we can start with whatever angle you like, from either the recruiter's point of view or the other.
Yeah. So business owners, they're not just looking for recruiters. Sometimes they just want pipeline. We just signed a Silicon Valley company in the agricultural autonomous vehicle space in agriculture. They need 16. They just raised money. They're looking for 16 hires in the next 3 months. Any headhunter would probably charge them, $400,000 to fill those roles as a 20. We don't do that. So we've given them a subscription to our software, about $2,500 per job per month. They're doing 4 jobs at a time. So that's $10,000. They'll have that for 3-4 months. If they want a fractional recruiter to help them do scheduling, that'll cost maybe another $5,000 a month. So for really a fraction of the price, they'll get what they want. So for recruiters, our clients include, some of the best names. Half of us have that. We're a biopharma company, a pharma company. Half of us have their vaccine in our arms. That's one of our clients. So these are clients that an independent recruiter could never work for. They would never hire them. We've taken all the pain out of it. We take only a small percentage of the actual fee that's going to the recruiter. So we really provide just a great service. And then we're also giving the recruiter access to tools. Our AI sourcing tools are multi-million-dollar tools, that we're providing to the recruiters to make sure they're doing great jobs. So we're really able to do that. So I think there's a really good value proposition. If you go to jobs.recruiter.com, there's over 1,000 companies from Square to Visa to many others in between looking for recruiters. And we're that source of jobs and recruiters for them. So we really have value on both sides of the equation.
And so just to make sure that I'm getting this correctly, so I'm thinking for the recruiters that I know, a lot of them are maybe smaller shops, 1 to 10 people. The ones that I've come across, there's a lot of those. And obviously there's the big agencies, obviously as well. But for some of these like mid-size or other agencies, I mean, when you think about like the scalability and the access to the tools, like all those other things, the sourcing that you mentioned, like that's, as you said, multi-million-dollar hardware equipment, right? That they're working with there to really power the growth of their business. So it's almost like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's almost like you have this partnership here and you're invested in each other with this relationship. Completely
agree. We're successful when the recruiters are successful. Fundamentally, I think that the headhunter model is broken, right? Yeah. Paying someone 20-30% of a success fee only if you actually get the job done. That doesn't work anymore for me, right? It shouldn't work for anybody, right? Yeah. That worked when you were staying at a job for 20 years. It probably worked when you're staying at a job for 10 years. Might even work when you're staying at a job for 5 years. At a job for 3 years, 4 years, it doesn't work. Yeah. More importantly, if you're a recruiter, you're worth more than that, right? I wouldn't go to an accountant and say, hey, look, I went to 4 accountants and the one I like, the one that gives me the best return on my tax return, that's the one I'm going to pay. Yeah. I wouldn't go to 4 doctors and say, hey, the one that cures me, that's the one I'm going to pay. We wouldn't do that. In fact, when I first started, I assumed a recruiter was like a was like a real estate broker. It's not. The real estate broker, there's some similarities, but there's an exclusive relationship between the two. And that model is very different. Here, the fastest way to hire talent, right? I want to focus on the fastest way to hire talent. The fastest way to hire talent is to find the right talent acquisition professional at the right time with the tools to actually build a candidate pipeline incredibly quickly that has subject matter expertise and pay that talent acquisition professional for their time. That is the fastest way, because I was paying you on success. Well, you'll make 5 phone calls, and if it works, you'll keep going. Otherwise, forget it. So I like to pay people for their time, because that's how you know you're getting value, right? In other words, I'm paying you for your time, and if you're not doing your job, it's on demand. I'll turn you off, and I'll turn someone else on. And that's what we provide. So for clients, it's all on demand, month to month. You like what we're doing, scale up, scale down, really based on your requirements. And that's what we really believe. Every macroeconomic event has caused more outsourcing to occur. Yeah. Right. So post 1998 was really the Y2K. Economy was bad. I got to make all these Y2K changes. What do you know? Outsourced IT started, right? Outsourced development actually started. Never came back, right? We outsourced a lot of IT. Post 1998, we started to see from the dot-com bust, more business process outsourcing actually started to happen. 2006 is really when Amazon launched their Amazon Web Services, right? So all these things really happened, post 2005, debacle of the subprime mortgages. Every time there's been one of these events, it's actually caused more things to get outsourced, because you want to focus on what companies are best at. So, what companies are best at is often not talent acquisition. Now, obviously, they're recruiting firms and RPOs, and those guys are great at recruiting. In fact, they're our clients. We're helping them grow their recruiting they're using our platform to actually find more recruiters. But when you go to a financial services company, that's not their core competence. Their core competence is doing whatever financial thing that they're doing. And so why not allow a third party to come in there and outsource your talent acquisition? And maybe not all of it, but the heavy lifting or the ebbs and flows of talent acquisition, and bring on people that actually know what they're doing and on demand basis. Most public companies don't have their own auditor. They have a third party auditor, right? We can all build our own data center, but we outsource it to someone, whether it's Amazon or Microsoft or somebody, because we know they're going to do a better job, 5 nines. And if they're not good, we'll replace them with someone else. So that's what I really view talent acquisition. And on-demand talent acquisition is really, I think, a trend that's going to continue and really ramp up pretty significantly, in the months ahead.
And there's something that you mentioned. So you said, it's a good for the employer side of things is to really look at it as a complement to what they're currently doing. So depending on the company, it may not it could complement on what they're doing. It doesn't mean they have to necessarily replace all their efforts. It sounds like on that side of things, it's a partnership as well.
Oh, absolutely. Our ideal customer profile is really 3 people. There's the startup company we said before. They're actually the recruiting firms, large recruiting firms and outsourced recruiting firms that work with us. But really, the ideal customer profile is the sophisticated company with a global head of talent. So our client is typically the global head of talent at fill in the blank, because that global head of talent knows I've got 1,000 roles I need to fill. I have this many recruiters. This is what they're filling. I need to augment this team. These 3 people are going to quit soon. This one's going on maternity or paternity leave. So I need this on demand. Help me with my on demand. And we augment those teams with on demand recruiters.
Wonderful. The same way we tackled the last question, thinking about both sides of the spectrum, the recruiter side, and then also, of course, the business owner or the corporation. Take me through the user experience. What does it look like to start out? So somebody's going to watch this interview, I'm sure, and they're going to say, all right, we need to check this out because Evan's describing us to a T. What does that user experience look like?
Yeah, you go to recruiter.com. And you, depending on your entry point, whether you're a recruiter, you're signing up on the job board and you're signing up for alerts and you're seeing all the opportunities that you have and you could apply to them, et cetera. Or if you're a business and you're looking for candidates or a pipeline, you fill out a form and you get a phone call, usually within I think 2 hours from one of our client success folks. and they'll take a look at what you need. It's still a little bit bespoke, which I like. There is a lot of white glove support to make sure that you're getting what you need, because we take it very, very seriously. And a lot of our clients are very large companies that expect to have, that sort of white glove approach. And so it's not just we also have a job board. So if you're just interested in posting a recruiting job on a job board, go to jobs.recruiter.com. You could self-serve, put up your job and see what happens. Or, hey, you can engage our enterprise team to really develop, to help you build either the pipeline or the program that you need.
It's awesome. Well, Evan, I have to say this is great. I learned a lot. I'm sure many of my audience did as well, in terms of how to rethink and reform, in my mind, really, how the future of the job market's going to look. And I agree with a lot of things you said. So we're not going back necessarily to how it was in the past, and that this expectancy of how long somebody's going to stay at a particular role or position isn't what it used to be, maybe. And maybe it stays that way. And if it does, then we understand that there's going to be more hiring. There's going to be more churn. There's going to be more. We have to reframe the way that we think about hiring and what even a good talent is for the company, and just accept that that's the nature of the marketplace, because we're not going to change or bend the marketplace here. We have to kind of conform to some of it, and we do our best to do so. So that being said, Evan, this has been wonderful. So what's next? What's next for you? What's next for recruiter.com?
Thanks so much. And, by the way, your closing was dead on. I think companies of all sizes, and really some of the companies that are having challenges are like, oh my God, I'd kill myself to work there, yet they're having problems. Companies of all sizes really need to rethink the way they address their most precious asset, which is their people. And as you said, they're going to have to increase the evergreen roles that they're looking for. They're going to have to increase the number of pipeline. They're going to have a continuous flow of candidates to fill, to their roles, to ensure their continued growth. And they're going to need talent acquisition professionals to make that all happen. Yeah. And, we are excited to be part of that experience. It is a giant industry. It's a $120 billion industry. So, we go from 200 recruiters out on assignment to 2,000. It's a blink of an eye in terms of the overall size. And we're just going to continue to grow. We've been growing 25% quarter over quarter from a financial perspective, and we're going to continue to grow and really do great stuff. We celebrate the placements. Yeah. That's what we celebrate at recruiter.com. Not just when we land a new client, we celebrate through a Slack channel every time someone's placed. And it's refreshing to see just how many placements that we're making. Our teams are actually really performing. And we just want to continue to really be that asset and that partner to the global head of talent, to the CEO, and to the recruiting firm.
Fantastic. And so for people that would like to learn more, what's the best way for them to follow up?
When you have the name recruiter.com, that's the best way. So I would say just go to recruiter.com. There's lots of information. There are videos, there are blogs, there's news. There's lots of things for you. Anyone that is a talent acquisition professional, sign up. We provide lots of interesting news. We have news every day, stories, articles written, but there's really just a great source of information. And rest assured, we have something for everybody in the talent acquisition industry on our website.
Fantastic. Well, Evan, just like to say, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about recruiter.com. And to the audience, of course, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you got a lot. If you did, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. We have many more mission-based executives and experts and entrepreneurs coming on, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Evan, it has truly been a pleasure. Thank you.
Adam, thank you so much for having me on your show.